The story begins when all the servers of our protagonist's favorite game are shut down. Feeling a deep emptiness, he decides to search for a game that can give him a harder and more exciting challenge. And sure enough, he finds a game described as endless. His excitement rises immediately, and he decides to take on the challenge. He chooses the hardest difficulty level, and he also chooses the hardest class available, the Summoner. The moment he presses the start button, the computer literally pulls him into the game, and he is reborn in that world as a small child. His father is overjoyed by his birth and names him Alan. Alan grows up surrounded by the love of his family, even though they are poor and simple farmers. His father is Rodan, and his mother is Teresa. As time passes, he realizes that he lives in a rural village where people work in farming and pay taxes. He also expects that he may have siblings in the future. One day, he remembers the game system and tries to open it. Instead of the usual menu, a magical book appears before him. At first, he becomes frightened and quickly closes it, but then he opens it again and begins reading. He discovers that his stats are extremely weak, and that he can summon only simple creatures. He also receives a message saying that his class is still under testing, but he does not care and continues trying. He attempts to summon an insect, but fails. Then he realizes that he must create a card first. After succeeding, he summons an insect the size of a cat, but it refuses to obey him. He names it Dina and discovers that it gives him a small boost to his abilities. However, his mother suddenly enters, feels disgusted by it, and stomps on it. Alan continues experimenting until he summons a white mouse and names it Mousy. He discovers that it has a skill called Scory, so he starts creating several cards and strengthening himself. Eventually, he becomes able to help chop wood despite his young age. Even so, he feels that this is not enough, and he regrets a little that he chose the hardest difficulty. One day, his father returns from hunting after killing a huge wild boar, and he takes Alan to see it. On the way, they see giant birds called albrins, and his father tells him that he named him after them. There, the people praise his father, while a man named Gerda is surprised that Alan can speak even though he is only 1 year old. Alan asks how strong the boar is and learns that it is a very powerful monster that would require around 20 men to kill. This makes him think that he must develop himself even more. 10 months later, he becomes able to summon G-rank monsters, and he tries fusing cards, but his life energy is too low. He tries to make up for it by eating, but it does not work, so he puts the matter aside temporarily. 3 years pass, and Alan becomes 3 years old. His strength and life energy increase, and he finally succeeds in fusing a G-rank card with an H-rank card, creating a GH-rank card and summoning a pet from it. He successfully summons a bird, becomes very excited, and names it Chappie. The bird is fast and strong, and it also has a voice mimicking skill, so Alan thinks about using it in combat. Alan goes outside with his summoned animals. He uses Hoppy, a small jumping bird, to distract opponents, and he uses Molly, who has the ability to dig, to create a pit trap. But while imagining his plans, he falls into the hole himself, which reminds him that he is still a child and not ready for real fighting. It is 3 in the afternoon, and he becomes worried when he hears Karina coming to play with him. They play sword fighting, but she is faster and stronger than him, so she strikes him until he falls and loses. After that, his parents return home, and it becomes clear that his mother is already pregnant. They ask Karina to leave, then everyone goes inside the house. During dinner, Alan asks to go to the farm to help, but his father and mother refuse and tell him that he is still too young, though they thank him for helping around the house. Alan believes he can help more, but he understands that his parents do not want to place responsibilities on him beyond his age. His mother tells him to play with Karina, while his father tells him about the evaluation ceremony. He explains that when children reach the age of 5, they undergo an evaluation that determines their skills. If a good talent appears, their entire future may change. His father notices that he is throwing stones at a tree and asks him why. Alan answers that he is training to protect his mother from monsters, but the truth is that he is trying to find out whether he has any skills other than summoning. The next day, Alan continues training until he becomes able to summon almost all day. While he is lost in thought, Karina arrives, and they play again. As usual, he loses. At the same time, his father returns home, and Teresa goes out to greet him, but Dina suddenly jumps at her and frightens her. After a few moments, Teresa feels pain and goes into labor. Rodan asks Karina to call her mother Matilda, then he takes Teresa to the bed. Alan helps heat the water, and Matilda arrives to begin the delivery. After some time, joyful voices are heard, and the baby is born. Alan now has a younger brother, and his father names him Mash. Teresa finds the name strange at first, but Rodin insists that it suits him. Alan thinks about his previous life and realizes that he has become attached to his new family. He wants to lift them out of poverty. When he approaches his baby brother, the child starts crying, so Alan is surprised. They tell him that this is normal. Alan feels happy with his new life and waits to see what the future will bring. The years pass, and Alan reaches the age of 5. He asks about the evaluation, and his father tells him that if he has a good talent, it could change his life, but he must wait for his turn. On the way, they meet Karina and her father. Then they all go to the city. Karina wants to become a knight. In the church, Alan notices the large gap between social classes, and he also notices that his appearance is different because of his black hair. The officials tell everyone that anyone can become a hero. They enter the church and Alan sees statues of the rulers, including Maya. The ceremony begins. The village chief's son is revealed to have the merchant talent, while another child has no talent at all. As for Dijora, he is shown to have a powerful talent. After the commoners, the farmer's turn comes quickly. Karina touches the crystal, and the place lights up powerfully. Her talent is revealed, Sword Lady. Everyone is surprised and happy. Alan expected this because of her strength, and then his turn finally comes. He approaches the crystal and touches it, waiting for the moment when his parents will learn that he is a summoner. But suddenly, the crystal goes dark. Alan is shocked and wonders what happened. Then, an incredibly powerful light bursts from it, even stronger than Karina's light, and pushes him backward. He quickly gets up to see the result, but the priest tells him that he has no talent. Alan is shocked and cannot understand what happened. But when he looks at his panel, he realizes that his talent is actually unreadable, so he begins complaining inwardly. He is confused about how he will later tell people that he is a summoner. But his father Rodin takes him and asks him to return home. At night, Rodin tells him that he is proud of him even if he has no talent, so Alan feels happy despite the situation. After everyone falls asleep, he opens his book and discovers that he is the only one playing on the hardest difficulty, and that all his stats are weak. He understands that his growth will be much harder, but in return, he will become stronger later. Still, he remains upset that his talent cannot be read, and decides to keep trying, even if he complains every night. After that, while walking with his mother, he asks her why his father is sad. She tells him that he returned late and seemed different. They go to Karina's house where she is very happy with her sword lady talent, while Alan pretends to be surprised. Matilda brings a drink as a gift, and Rodin becomes happy for a short time before returning to his sadness. Goethe notices this and asks him why. Rodin becomes emotional and says he is happy for Karina, but he is worried that she may become a noble and grow distant from them. Everyone is shocked, but Goethe assures him that nothing will change. The children try to join the conversation, but the mothers stop the men. After everyone calms down, they remember their old friendship and sit together to drink. A few days later, news arrives that a knight is asking about Karina. In the city, everyone begins talking about her. A boy named Dijora mocks Alan, but Karina defends him. When the boy tries to attack him, Goethe stops him. After that, the village chief announces the arrival of the knights, and the commander Zenov appears. He is a swordmaster, and he asks to meet Karina and her father. Goethe becomes nervous, and Alan feels that something is wrong. He fears that they may take Karina away from them. Goethe objects and says she is still young, but Zenov tells him that she must undergo the test, and that refusing would be considered fraud, punishable by death. The entire village is shocked, and they begin preparing a combat test. Goethe tries to stop it, but he is threatened. As for Karina, she asks to hold the sword herself, and decides to fight with enthusiasm, while her father becomes even more anxious. The fight begins, and Karina attacks with a speed that amazes everyone. But when the vice commander becomes serious, he strikes her and knocks her to the ground. Goethe tries to interfere, but they stop him. Alan realizes that her experience is still limited despite her talent, but Karina suddenly stands up, and a strange aura appears around her. She attacks with great speed, forcing the vice commander to focus only on defense, then lands a blow that breaks his sword. At that moment, Commander Zenov immediately stops the fight. Karina thanks her opponent and tells him that he is strong, even though he is still only 24 years old. Zenov is surprised by her skill, acknowledges her strength, and then apologizes for his behavior. After that, he tells them that they need to discuss her future and that they may bring her friends if they wish. At the village chief's house, Alan notices that Gerda is still angry, and he is also surprised to see Dejora there. Zainoff introduces himself again and tells them that he came by order of the landlord to confirm that the evaluation ceremony was properly conducted. Then he tells the village chief that villages are usually named after their chief, but since a sword lady was born in this village, the landlord wishes to name it Karina. The village chief agrees immediately, while Gerda is left in shock. Zainoff continues speaking and says that a swordmaster was born 3 years ago into a count's family. Alan is surprised by this while secretly eating fruit, because he had believed that swordmasters only appeared among commoners. Zainoff explains that this person served the royal family, but his level was not good. When he was re-evaluated, it turned out that he was only a swordsman, which revealed that many nobles had been falsifying their talents. Because of that, the royal family began to doubt the evaluation rituals, and Zainoff apologizes once again to Gerda for testing his daughter. Gerda accepts the apology, and Zainoff tells them that Karina will enter the academy when she turns 12, and after that, she will serve the royal family. Done. Meanwhile, the boy carrying the axe asked whether he could become a knight. His father grew nervous and apologized, but Zainoff told him that he would send a teacher to the village and asked the boy to work hard in his training. After that, Karina asked Alan to study with her, but Tora mocked him, saying that he had no talent. Sina quickly defended him, insisting that he was strong. Alan found himself surprised. In truth, he was an adult, and yet he found himself affected by the words of a 5-year-old child, while a girl his own age was defending him. Zainoff noticed Alan's black hair and black eyes, so he asked about him. Rodan told him that Alan was his son, and Gerda introduced them to each other. Zainoff was surprised and asked Rodan if he was the famous boar hunter, then apologized to him because they had failed to appreciate his status properly. He explained that the landlord was pleased with the boars he sent and praised his courage and skill. Rodan accepted the praise politely, and then everyone exchanged farewells. On the way back, Rodan told his son that no matter how hard life became, a person had to live with dignity. Alan understood the meaning of those words very well. Alan remembered that he was still playing on the hardest difficulty. Before they reached home, he told his father that he had brought a gift for his mother and mash. So Rodan laughed and told him that he used to do the same thing when he was young. Later, Alan felt happy because he raised his summoning skill from level 2 to level 3. He now had 30 summoning slots. His summoned creatures had become stronger, and he could summon F-rank creatures, though he had not tried it yet. That night, the family learned that a third child was on the way, and Mash was excited to know the baby's gender. Alan was eager for the conversation to end so he could test his new abilities. Teresa said she felt the baby would be a girl, and if that was true, she would choose her name. Rodan asked her what name she had in mind, but at that moment, Alan's book suddenly opened, and a message from Elma appeared. Alan read the message quietly, but his parents heard the name and warned him about it. Teresa noticed that Alan was acting strangely, so she asked his father about the wound he had. Rodan explained that injuries like that happened to him while hunting, and that they sometimes seemed like trials imposed by the rulers. He also said that the exhaustion that came with them sometimes disappeared in a strange way. Alan realized that his father was far stronger than he seemed. Although his summoning level had risen, Alan himself was still level 1. And he would only be able to raise his level through hunting, while farmers were forbidden from leaving the village. So he asked his father to let him hunt, but Rodan refused and told him that hunting was far more dangerous than he imagined. Alan returned to his room thinking about Elma's message. Then he realized that it had been a response to his earlier complaints. More importantly, his talent had finally become readable, and he also understood that his father had received something like a prophecy related to his new class. Alan noticed that his skill rating did not exceed the average level, but his stat growth rate was extremely high. His magic and intelligence stats were S rank, while the rest of his stats were A rank, so he felt satisfied and began testing his abilities. His first experiment was on Dinka. When he enhanced it, he was shocked by the huge increase in its stats. Its appearance improved greatly, even though its size did not change, but his mother became frightened of it and forced him to return it to its normal state. The next day, he discovered that enhancement remained even after returning the creature to its summoning card, so he understood that he had to strengthen as many of his cards as possible. While hanging the laundry, he remembered his previous failed fusion attempts. This time, he fused an A-rank insect with an F-rank bird, and the process succeeded, producing an F-rank plant card. He became very excited, especially because plants increased magic and strength, which would help him create new cards more quickly. He summoned the new plant, and it appeared in the form of a small apple. He named it Appo. Its appearance did not suggest that it was a combat creature, but when he used its skill, small sprouts grew from the ground. At first he felt disappointed, but then he convinced himself that it at least had some use. He tried returning it to the card, but it refused to respond. His mother saw the sprouts and noticed their pleasant scent, while Alan began thinking about the possible benefits of that ability. After some time, he trained with Gerda and lost as usual, but Gerda noticed that his strength had improved. When Alan checked his book, he found that his sword skill had reached level 3, and that his physical strength and endurance had also increased. He thought that Boji was the only creature with a real offensive ability, but he did not want to test it on humans, so he decided to wait. After that, he continued throwing stones at trees again and again to raise his level, despite the fatigue and exhaustion, because he did not know when the next progress would happen. Over time, he noticed that Appo's presence helped speed up mana recovery. One rainy night, Rodin was late returning home. After a while, the villagers brought him back with serious injuries. They told the family that a powerful wild boar had wounded him. They burned the wound with fire to stop the bleeding and explained that he had survived thanks to a rare flower that had been used to treat him. Some people began blaming the farmers, but the truth was that the village chief had asked them to join the hunt because they needed meat. Everyone had been relying on Rodin's strength, but when the attack happened, some of the men ran away, while he stayed and fought to protect them. That was why he was injured. The next morning, Rodin woke up and checked on his family. At that moment, Alan realized that he had been looking at the world as if it were only a game, focusing only on gaining strength. But now he began to understand the harsh reality his family lived in. Gilda brought them their share of meat and promised to help them. Rodin thanked her for that, but Alan declared that he wanted to protect his family himself and vowed to do everything he could. He began helping with his father's work, which amazed everyone because of his strength. He decided that he would no longer act like a child, so he sacrificed part of his mana to become stronger and focused all his effort on protecting his family. While harvesting potatoes with Gilda, he noticed that 60% of the harvest went to the village chief, which made the villagers suffer during winter. Later, the village chief and his son came to apologize. The son even knelt and begged for forgiveness. Alan felt uncomfortable watching the scene, but Rodin asked him to be more careful in the future. Alan was also surprised by the amount of gold his father received, while Teresa remained angry because of what had happened. After that, things calmed down, and the farmers came to help. Alan prepared a small field and summoned Biana to attract ducks, but the skill failed unexpectedly. Instead, a powerful C-rank monster appeared and easily devoured the summoned creature. Alan thought about running away, but he decided to fight. He attacked with a wooden sword and stones, but it was useless. Then he summoned Boji, but that changed nothing. At that moment, he realized that losing his summoned creatures weakened him greatly. He was on the verge of defeat, but he managed to stop the monster's attack at the last second. Immediately after that, he summoned the chess pieces and made them absorb the monster's energy, buying himself some time to catch his breath. After recovering part of his strength, he summoned the Gotoubun and launched a counterattack. With one powerful blow, he finally managed to bring the monster down. The book announced that he had gained 100 experience points, and he felt extremely happy with this achievement. He returned home carrying the monster and told his family what had happened, but he lied about how he hunted it, claiming that he had caught it while it was flying. Everyone was shocked, while Mashu began crying. Gilda was surprised by his hunting method and asked him about his injuries, so he told her that he had not noticed them. She believed him and began dealing with the monster. Alan noticed an injury on Gilda and wondered what had caused it. Then he helped her butcher the monster and learned that its great weight did not mean all of its meat was edible. He also learned that 60% of it would go to the village chief. Even the magic stone extracted from it belonged to the chief as well. But since Alan had hunted the monster by himself, the family began thinking about negotiating. They went to the village chief and told him what had happened. The man was very happy, but he refused to give up his share of the monster. Gilda tried offering him the feathers and the magic stone in exchange, but the offer was not enough. At that moment, Alan intervened and pretended to be extremely tired and hungry, so the village chief agreed to leave the monster to them. After that, Alan asked to keep the meat in exchange for giving up the feathers and the magic stone, and the man agreed. Alan continued hunting after that. He used Biana as bait and the chess pieces to absorb energy, and with the help of the Gyobe and his sword, he managed to hunt 2 ducks. He told himself that he hunted once every 3 days, and this time he did not lose any of his summoned creatures. Then the book announced that he had reached level 2. Alan was overjoyed, because he had finally managed to raise his level after 6 full years. He returned home and told his family what he had achieved. Rodan was very surprised, but he said nothing. After that, Alan went to train with Karina in swordsmanship. He practiced blocking and dodging while thinking about his plans for winter. He tried attacking to raise his level even more, but he became distracted during the fight, and Karina took the chance to defeat him. After training ended, she said goodbye and returned home. That night, Alan decided to reveal his secret to his family. He told them that he had received a prophecy when he was 1 year old. His parents were shocked, and Rodan asked him if it had come from one of the rulers. Alan confirmed it and added that he possessed wisdom and power beyond others, but that the trial he faced was harder than the trials of 100 people combined. His parents were deeply moved, and they cried as they prayed for the ruler to have mercy on him. Rodan asked him whether he had passed the first stage of the trial, because he had noticed that the scar on his face had disappeared. Alan was surprised, but his father told him that he had gone through a similar experience in his youth. His mother asked him what result he had reached, and he told her that 2 months earlier, he had received a prophecy from the ruler of creation. He explained that his weak stats were due to his slow growth, and that his talent was new, which was why it did not appear to others. His father wanted to know more, but Alan claimed that he did not fully understand it, while in truth he was hiding many details so no one would consider him dangerous. His mother hugged him, worried about him, and his father asked him about his next plan. Alan answered that he would continue down this path. Rodan told him to ask for help if he needed it, but warned him not to tell anyone else. Then he allowed him to tell only Gilda. As time passed, Alan began helping Gilda cut the meat. She told him that she had felt for a long time that he was not an ordinary child. After that, they went to the city to sell the meat. There, Alan asked about the difference between his family and ordinary farmers, and he learned that the difference lay in the high taxes they paid. He also learned that they paid 3 gold coins to the village chief and 1 additional gold coin for each child. When he asked whether they could become ordinary farmers, they told him that it would require paying 10 gold coins. He calculated that his family would need around 50 gold coins to achieve that. They sold the meat and bought salt and fruit. Alan began recording prices in his book, learned the value of different coins, and started calculating how many hunting trips he would need to collect the money. After that, he searched for healing methods and learned the shapes of some useful medicinal plants. He also asked about a rare flower, but he could not buy it. Then he remembered that Gilda had once sold one at a low price to save someone's life. When he understood what Gilda had done for his father, he was deeply moved and gave the merchant an extra amount of meat as an expression of gratitude. As he was leaving, he saw an expensive weapon. At that moment, he got into a fight with a young man who tried to force himself on him. Alan was not interested in the problem at first, but he was forced to confront him, and in the end, he won easily. He returned home and found his father in good condition, with the bandages removed. Teresa asked him to be more careful. Then he sat with them and finally enjoyed a moment of peace and stability. The next day, Alan trained with Degura near Karina's house, and this time, he successfully dodged her attacks. After training ended, everyone returned home. In the evening, while the 2 families were sitting together, Rodan and Gerda came back looking extremely worried. They announced that the landlord had raised the required hunting quota to 15 wild boars, which meant the farmers would be forced to take part in the hunts. Teresa objected to the decision, but Rodan explained that the order had come directly from the landlord and could not be disobeyed. Gerda then explained that failing to meet the required number would lead to new farmers being brought into the area, which would reduce the current villagers' share of resources. Worse still, the required quota might rise next year to 20 boars. Alan realized that the real problem was that following the orders would not guarantee the end of the demands. Instead, it might only increase the burden in the future. When Gerda described the farmers as useless in hunting, Alan partly agreed with her, but he pointed out that they could still be useful in a different way, and and asked to handle the matter himself. A few days later, Alan arrived at the hunting site with the farmers and servants. His role was limited to observing and giving instructions, which annoyed him slightly because he wanted to raise his level and gain experience himself. He explained to everyone that the goal was to train the beginners properly and avoid repeating the mistakes that had happened before. The young man who had caused Rodin's injury during a previous hunt apologized again, but Rodin told him to focus on his task instead of worrying about apologizing. The group entered the forest, and Alan felt excited because it was the first time he had ever left the village boundaries. Goethe explained the usual plan, which depended on using beginners as bait to lure the wild boar, while experienced hunters attacked it from both sides. This method had been used for years, but it was not suitable for beginners, so Alan suggested adjusting the plan. The beginners would stay away from danger until the beast was weakened, then step in to land a limited number of attacks and gain experience without exposing themselves to serious risk. The idea proved successful, and they managed to kill the boar easily. The beginners also leveled up. Although Alan did not gain any experience, he felt satisfied seeing his plan succeed. The next day, he learned that one of the men had temporarily stopped hunting because his wife was pregnant. Alan used the chance to make an agreement with him. The man would butcher the birds Alan hunted in exchange for a portion of the meat. Alan's goal was to collect 50 dinars to improve his family's living conditions. The hunting campaigns continued, and the number of beginners taking part increased. The same plan was carried out again and again, and everyone continued leveling up. On one occasion, Alan sent one of his summoned creatures to be attacked by the beast on purpose, so the system counted it as his contribution to the battle, and he gained the experience points needed to reach level 3, even though he felt a little guilty about what he had done. 3 months passed, and the families were invited to the village chief's mansion to celebrate the new year. Karina was extremely happy about the occasion, and celebrations were held throughout the village. During the gathering, Goethe praised Alan's new hunting plan, confirming that it had made the task much easier and would also make future goals easier to achieve. The guests noticed an expensive bottle in Alan's possession, so he explained that it was a gift from the chief after he defeated him in an arm wrestling contest. At that moment, Alan suggested that if he could win again, he should be allowed to participate directly in the hunts. Rodin was not convinced by the idea, but he eventually agreed. Alan faced Goethe first, and thanks to the enhancements he received from his summoned creatures, he managed to defeat him, shocking everyone. Then he faced Rodin and managed to hold out for a while, but he lost in the end. Even so, he confidently declared that one day he would become stronger than his father. As the end of the year approached, Alan raised his summoning skill level and unlocked a new group of summonable creatures. He also discovered a new feature inside his magic book called storage. He decided to test it immediately, placing a stone inside the book, and it disappeared at once. When he put his hand inside, he found himself able to reach it within a mysterious space. He realized then that he had an almost limitless storage space, capable of holding a huge number of items, an incredibly valuable ability. Still, he decided to think about it later and focus on the new summons for now. He tried summoning one of the new creatures, but nothing happened. After searching, he discovered that A-rank monsters required magic stones to summon. Fortunately, he had been keeping some for a while. He tried again, but failed once more. Then a different idea came to him. He placed the magic stones inside the storage space, and suddenly a giant butterfly with a beautiful, majestic appearance appeared before him. He quickly hid the butterfly before his mother could see it, then went to the fields and summoned a saber tiger. After several attempts and the consumption of more magic stones, he succeeded in fusing the two creatures together and realized that future fusions would require far greater quantities of magic stones. During dinner, he learned that the village had long ago wiped out the monster rabbits that had once been an important source of magic stones, which made him worry that they might run out. The next day, he discovered that low-quality magic stones had no value in the eyes of the villagers and were even left scattered on the ground, so he began collecting them constantly until he managed to unlock all the new summons. As time passed, he realized that he had become capable of controlling battles through a large number of summoned creatures, bringing him closer to his dream of becoming overwhelmingly strong. Later, they visited the noble's estate, where they were told that the mayor would visit the village every month and that they had to prepare around 20 wild boars for the hunts. Alan was also asked to serve as the mayor's guide and attendant during the visit because he was considered the best suited for the task. Alan understood the reasons behind the request and accepted. He He was then told that he had to help with hospitality duties, especially during the dinner banquet held before the hunt. He realized that they wanted to gain the mayor's approval, but he decided not to let anyone take advantage of him. At the same time, he knew that building a good relationship with the mayor might help him obtain commoner status in the future, so he accepted the job. When the mayor arrived at the village, tension spread among the residents. He thanked them for their efforts, then surprised everyone by apologizing for imposing the high hunting quotas, explaining that the decision had come by direct order from the king. During dinner, the mayor tasted the food Alan had prepared and asked about it. After receiving permission, Alan explained how he made it using fresh meat and suitable spices. The mayor asked whether he was the son of the house owner, and Alan told him that he belonged to a simple farming family. The mayor's daughter seemed displeased by that, but her father immediately scolded her. After that, the mayor asked him whether he was ready for the hunting day, and Alan answered with confidence. Those present explained that if they failed to hunt 20 boars, the knights would step in to finish the task. But Alan surprised everyone by confirming that the required number was small for them, and that they would succeed without any problem. Before they set out, the mayor asked them to take care of his son during the trip, and everyone agreed. At the camp, Alan explained the hunting plan in detail, then they climbed the watchtower. After some time, the hunters reached their positions. Rodan explained that their strategy depended on speed and light equipment to lure the boars into areas prepared in advance. The mayor was deeply impressed by what he saw, to the point that he promised to send a tutor to help Alan study. Alan understood the value of the offer, but he knew that his current circumstances made it difficult to benefit from it properly. Suddenly, one of the men rushed forward while fleeing from a giant wild boar. The group raised their shields to protect themselves, then rained spears down on the beast until Rodan arrived and delivered the finishing blow. The mayor was amazed by the perfect coordination between the hunters and realized that their true strength lay in teamwork, not individual power. A short while later, another beast appeared. Someone suggested calling the guards, but Alan asked them to wait, explaining that the hunters were used to dealing with situations like this. He was convinced that leaving the beasts alive meant a possible loss for the village. He remembered how, in the past, they had been unable to kill all the beasts because their equipment was poor. Most of their gains were also paid as taxes, while the rest was used to obtain basic necessities. But now, their situation was gradually improving. When one of those present mentioned that they still needed 17 more boars, Alan corrected him, explaining that the remaining number was no more than 10 and that the task would be completed before the next month arrived. This impressed the mayor, who stated that the knights would not need to interfere. Alan felt happy, especially for his father. After that, Alan made 2 requests to the mayor. The first was to build defensive walls to assist in the hunts. The second was to bring in rare goods unavailable in the village, such as drinks and special products, so the residents could barter meat for them and preserve its value, while also raising the hunters' morale. The mayor found both suggestions reasonable and promised to consider them. Then he praised everyone's efforts and announced that they would be granted commoner status as a reward for their achievements. Alan felt tremendous joy because this status would allow him to leave the village boundaries and hunt more freely. He had already begun planning to visit the White Dragon Mountains in the future. The mayor also announced that everyone who had participated in hunting for more than 10 years would receive the same status, and asked for a list of their names to be prepared. After that, he prepared to leave, explaining that the king wanted to make this village a model to be followed throughout the kingdom. Before leaving, he asked how the boar hunting story in the village had begun. Rodan then told him what had happened 13 years earlier, when around 100 people came to reclaim the farmland. After a period of harsh labor, a giant wild boar appeared and completely destroyed the crops, causing everyone to lose hope of continuing their lives there. At that moment, Rodan suggested that they begin hunting the boars in order to survive. Although they lacked experience and proper equipment, they used simple tools and barely managed to kill their first boar. The mayor was deeply moved by the story and confirmed that the villagers should be proud of themselves because they had united to accomplish a task that seemed impossible. However, he also reminded them that they had lost one of their companions during that attempt. After killing the boar, they passed the ruler's trial, and their injuries were healed, but their companion had not been as fortunate. Rodan had told his son many times not to blame himself for what had happened, but the son had never been able to move past it. At that moment, Alan understood the real reason behind his father's constant desire to protect ordinary people. He had lost friends that way before. The mayor did not want to revive painful memories, but he wanted Rodan to realize an important truth. The village would never have prospered without his wise decisions and courage during its hardest moments. Finally, the mayor announced that he intended to honor everyone with new rewards in appreciation of their efforts. At that moment, Rodan asked whether his son could work in the mayor's household. The mayor consulted one of his servants about whether there was a vacant position, and the answer came back yes, so he immediately approved the request. However, Alan did not actually want to work there, because he needed to look after his siblings and he also had to find a way out of his current situation. But when he saw how happy his father was, he decided to keep his thoughts to himself. When they arrived home, everyone said their goodbyes. Then Alan decided to have one final training match with his friend, and this time, he managed to win. He told her that they would still continue seeing each other often in the future. As for his father, he told him to work hard and sincerely, because this was the first major opportunity in his life, and he confirmed that he had great hopes for him. After that, Alan was carrying Ciel so she could pick fruit from the tree. Since he had grown tired of her repeated attempts to reach the branches without success, he suggested that she stand on his shoulders. Ciel agreed, but warned him that she might lose her balance and fall on him. In this way, they managed to gather the fruit, but it turned out that she did not like it because it was extremely sour. In any case, Ciel sent Alan to the market to buy another kind that would balance the flavor. While he was about to leave, a massive shadow covered the place. Alan raised his head and saw a ship flying above the house. It resembled machines powered by magic stones, and he was deeply impressed by its enormous size. The next day, Alan woke up feeling something strange coming from one of the plants. When he approached it, he checked its stats and found that one was F rank and the other was A rank, which made him strangely excited. But before doing anything, he went to eat breakfast. In the dining room, he met the head butler, Ril. Ril asked him whether he had gotten used to working under Ciel's supervision. Alan answered that he had adjusted somewhat, so Ril smiled sympathetically and told him that this was the nature of a servant's life, and that if he were a high-ranking servant, he would not be asked to do that many tasks. Alan then asked him about the difference between the two kinds. Ril explained that high-ranking servants included the housekeeper, the head chef, and the lady's personal maid. As for lower-ranking servants, they included the driver, the ordinary cook, the gardener, and the personal attendant. All of these people were considered part of the master's household. However, workers who served temporarily or only when needed were not treated as members of the household. At that moment, Alan understood why his father had cried from joy. The mayor had made them part of his household. He also began thinking about how little food the mayor's family consumed compared to their status. The mayor's wife noticed how quickly he learned servant duties, so he told her that it was thanks to the senior servants teaching him. She then said that his manners were better than anyone she had seen before, and the mayor nodded in agreement, despite knowing that Alan had no special talent. Cecil laughed and said that she was a mage, so Alan realized that this was an excellent 2-star talent. Then Ciel proudly announced that her older brother, Mihei, was a swordsman, but her father immediately scolded her because she was boasting too much. Even so, Thomas was the only child in the family who had no talent. The mayor encouraged him and told him that he would study at the Noble Academy in the royal capital. As for Thomas, he dreamed of attending Academy City like Mihei, but admission there was limited only to those with talents. The mayor explained that he himself had no talent, which was why he attended the Noble Academy instead of the Talent Academy. And there, he met Thomas's mother. During his free time, Alan went out to explore the city and noticed the huge difference between it and his village. There, he saw the Adventurers Guild. He entered the building and asked whether he could join, but they told him that the minimum age was 12, while he was only 8. Alan had no intention of giving up, so he began gathering information from the guild, such as monster classifications and reward prices. One adventurer approached him and warned him that the place was not a playground for children. Alan apologized and was about to leave, but before that, he asked why some bounty locations were not specified. The adventurer explained that those monsters could appear anywhere, then told him to go home. Before leaving, Alan asked one final question about how monster ranks were determined. The man answered that the danger level increased the farther one went from the city, and that the highest ranks were found near the White Dragon Mountains. Alan smiled inwardly, because he felt the man was answering everything he wanted to know. Then he pointed to several pending requests and asked why no one had accepted them. The adventurer explained that those monsters were extremely strong and dangerous, and that handling them was usually left to professional knights. Among the requests, Alan noticed one related to hunting a white dragon. When he tried asking about it, the man ordered him to leave the place immediately, but Alan threw out one last question. The adventurer sighed, then explained that the mission was extremely difficult because of the dragon's strength. The White Dragon Mountains also contained massive deposits of an incredibly valuable mineral. Many people had tried to extract it and failed, which was why the reward had continued rising for many years. The moment Alan heard that, he began calculating the value of that mineral and estimated that it exceeded 1,000 gold coins. At that moment, the rest of the adventurers' party appeared to stop Alan from bothering their companion any further. Alan said goodbye to them and left the guild, extremely excited about his new goal. On one of his days off, he ran toward the city gate. The guard stopped him and asked for his travel permit. Alan showed the permit, surprising the guard, who immediately apologized when he learned that Alan belonged to the Granville household. Alan did not care about the matter, and as soon as the gate opened, he rushed straight toward the forest. Based on the information he had gathered, he began carrying out his plan. He summoned several small creatures to search for monsters, then summoned another creature to test something. After a short while, the creatures returned and indicated that they had found a target. Alan immediately followed them, but after several minutes of running, he began to feel worried. Then he realized his mistake. He had not specified the search distance for them beforehand and decided to pay attention to that issue in the future. After some time, he found a group of goblins. He quickly made a plan, summoned several creatures, and set up an ambush. He ordered his creatures to attack with their claws, and they managed to kill some of the goblins, but that was not enough. So he summoned another creature that had the ability to put goblins to sleep. Once they fell asleep, he began throwing stones at them until he eliminated them all. He collected the magic stones they left behind, then sent his creatures to search for more. The hunting continued throughout the day until night fell. When he finished, he discovered that he had gathered a total of 16,000 experience points, which raised his level twice. He also discovered that the new creature had an 80% success rate in putting goblins to sleep, and that weak magic stones could not be used to summon powerful creatures, and the opposite was also true. After understanding that rule, he wanted to keep gathering experience. But the birds he depended on did not move, because they were not nocturnal creatures. He had been planning to use them to return to the city, but he ended up lost in the forest. On another day, he bought several iron balls to make them stronger than the stones he had been using before. With continued hunting, he finally reached level 12. His strategy was simple: gather experience from weak monsters while also improving his equipment and fighting style. When he returned home, he was surprised by a summons from the head butler, who took him to meet the mayor. The mayor praised his performance over the past 2 months, but wanted to know what he was doing on his days off. Alan understood the reason for the concern and admitted the truth, saying that he hunted monsters because the blood of hunters ran through his veins. Although he said the last sentence without thinking, he felt that it was very fitting. The mayor understood the matter, but asked him about the horned rabbits he had been hunting. Everyone had assumed that Alan was simply hunting weak monsters for training, and they also wanted to make sure he was not selling his hunting permit. But Alan explained that he had been disposing of the rabbits after killing them. At that moment, the mayor told him that the Granville territory would buy the meat of those rabbits for 1 silver coin per sack. That was far better for Alan, so he thanked them for the offer. On another day, he made a plan to hunt 100 goblins, but his creatures returned in a clearly tense state. He hurried to find out the reason, only to find a group of adventurers from the Adventurers Guild fighting goblins. Among them was the man he had met before. Since the man was injured, Alan helped them using his iron balls, and because he did not want anyone to see his summoned creatures, he fought using only his knife. Thanks to reaching level 12, both his attack power and speed had exceeded 300 points, allowing him to eliminate the goblins without any help. After the last goblin fell, a white-haired girl ran to check on her companion. He was seriously wounded. She asked the priestess to heal him, but the priestess did not have enough magic power. While she begged him to hold on, Alan approached and offered to help. He took a life leaf out of his magic book, a material capable of restoring health points. Then he quietly placed it over Raven's stomach. The leaf began to glow, and moments later, the wound closed completely, and Raven regained consciousness. The girls quickly asked about his condition, and he confirmed that he was fine. After that, Alan noticed another injury on Rita, so he used a second life leaf to heal her. The girls hesitated to accept help of such value, but Alan reassured them and told them not to worry. At that moment, Raven introduced himself and told Alan that he was the young man he had met earlier at the Adventurers Guild, then thanked him for saving his life. Alan answered that there was no need to thank him and was about to leave. But Raven stopped him and insisted on repaying the favor. Alan refused to take any reward because he needed to continue gathering experience to reach his goals. He settled for one request only, that they not tell anyone about him. Everyone promised to keep his secret, and added that if he ever needed anything in the future, he should ask without hesitation. After hearing that, he asked them to gather around 100 high-grade magic stones for him. Raven was a little confused by the request, but agreed in the end, promising to prepare them within the next week. After that, they said goodbye and parted ways. On his way back, Alan thought about what had happened. The flower he had used before to heal his father had taken an entire month for recovery to be complete, while Raven was healed instantly using the life leaf. From that, he concluded that the flower healed a percentage of health points, while the life leaf directly restored a fixed amount of health points. While he sat on one of the trees reviewing the amount of experience he had gathered, he remembered what had happened with Hawkins. He summoned him immediately and asked why he had ignored his orders and led him farther away than he had requested. Hawkins nodded, confirming it. Alan was surprised when he realized that summoned creatures could sometimes put their own feelings and desires ahead of orders. That made him think deeply about how special the creatures made by Elmia truly were. When he noticed the sadness on Hawkins's face, he explained that he had not meant to scold him or make him sad, and promised that he would be more precise and clearer in his orders in the future. That night, Alan was seen carrying Ciel while she tried to secretly take a jar of jam. Alan asked her why she was doing that, and she told him she wanted to make some cookies to welcome her older brother, Mihei. Alan did not fully understand, but in a moment of distraction, he lost his balance, and both he and Ciel fell to the floor, making a clear noise. The others heard the sound, but the two of them quickly started imitating cats meowing so no one would discover what had happened. At the same time, the mayor and his family were having dinner when they were suddenly surprised by the delicious taste of the meat served at the table. When the mayor asked what kind of meat it was, Cecil told him it came from the wild rabbits Alan had hunted in the forest. The mayor smiled and said that was only natural from the son of the great hunter Rodain. After that, the mayor told Alan that his village had successfully hunted 20 wild boars and fulfilled all the kingdom's demands. Alan felt extremely happy when he learned that his father was still continuing to hunt successfully, despite his absence from the village. But Thomas looked very upset and asked whether that meant they would not be eating boar meat again. At that moment, Alan discovered that all the boars hunted in his village were always sent to the royal capital, and none of them ever reached the mayor's mansion. He wondered to himself why the royal capital needed such huge amounts. The mayor explained that the king was the one who had ordered the increase in wild boar hunting, and yet none of those shares had reached his mansion. Then the mayor's wife, Granvelle, asked what they would do if they wanted to hold a party at the moment, and where they would get boar meat from. The mayor answered that they were not required to serve boar meat at every occasion, and that they could rely on any other kind of food. After that, Thomas asked Alan if he could hunt a white deer next time, but Cecil immediately interrupted him and told him that any request involving Alan had to go through her first. Alan was surprised by her behavior and wondered inwardly whether she considered herself his manager. Thomas's mother tried to end the topic and told him that it was not the right time for such a request, but Alan stepped in and promised Thomas that he would hunt a white deer for him that very day. Everyone was delighted by his agreement. Alan explained that the white deer had a rank similar to the wild boars the hunters were used to chasing. After that, he went out into the forest. It did not take long before his eagle returned and informed him that it had found the white deer. Alan followed it immediately until he reached the location, and there he was surprised to find that the deer had just wiped out a group of goblins. When he approached it, he noticed that its size was abnormally huge, and it was clearly not an ordinary animal, which made him even more excited for the coming confrontation. Unlike what others might expect, Alan began executing his own plan to hunt the white deer. He summoned a group of frogs and ordered them to use a skill called Taunt. The frogs began jumping in front of the deer in an annoying and ridiculous way until they enraged it severely. The moment it charged to attack them, Alan ordered them to disappear quickly so it could not catch any of them. They repeated this process several times until they successfully guided it toward the trap he had prepared in advance. and when the deer decided to launch its final attack, it fell straight into the trap. At that moment, Alan stepped forward, drew his dagger, and ended its life with a single strike. When he returned to the city carrying the white deer, the soldiers quickly gathered after assuming that the monster had approached the city to attack it. Alan was carrying the massive deer on his shoulders and calling out to Thomas loudly, to the point that the soldiers thought the deer itself was the one speaking. Then Alan came out from behind the monster's body and sarcastically told them that he was the one speaking, not the deer, and asked them for help because the deer's weight was close to a full ton. He also explained to them that he had hunted it specifically for Thomas. The mayor arrived afterward, and he could hardly believe that Alan had truly managed to hunt the white deer. As for Thomas, he was overjoyed and told his mother that they finally had special meat they could serve at the New Year's celebration. Meanwhile, the mayor spoke with his assistant and expressed his amazement at Alan's ability to hunt the white deer on his own, especially since it was known to be an extremely powerful monster. He wondered how a child with no talent could achieve something like this, and pointed out that they might have to re-evaluate his talent again. After that, the mayor's assistant summoned Alan to his office and told him that they had decided to grant him 2 official jobs. The first was hunting monsters, due to his great efficiency in that field. The second was contributing to the city's defense against any possible monster attacks. Alan could hardly believe what he was hearing, because he had finally become able to go out into the forest and hunt monsters officially under the mayor's authority. But the assistant explained to him that these jobs would not be unpaid, then took out a bag of money and handed it to him. His new salary was 100 silver coins, twice what he had been earning while working inside the mayor's mansion. At first, Alan felt suspicious and thought they were trying to exploit him because they had replaced the payment per monster system with a fixed salary. He thought that the white deer he had hunted alone was worth more than 100 silver coins, which made him believe they were trying to benefit from him at the lowest possible cost. The assistant noticed him spacing out and asked whether he was dissatisfied with the amount. Alan quickly denied it, confirming that the salary was excellent and extremely generous. But inside, he had already begun planning to use his official position to go out into the forest, hunt monsters, and then sell their meat for his own profit. He announced to the assistant that he accepted the hunter position and confirmed his readiness to go hunting every day. But the assistant surprised him with an unexpected response, reminding him that his main duty was still serving Princess Ciel. For that reason, he would only be allowed to go hunting once a week. At that moment, Alan felt as though his ambitions had taken a heavy blow, because he realized that he would not be able to gather money as quickly as he had hoped. After that, Alan was seen with Ciel as they watched the flying ship in the sky. He began wondering how it was able to fly, and eventually concluded that it relied on magic stones. As soon as the ship landed, Cecil ran toward it to welcome her older brother, who had just arrived. There, Alan learned that his name was Mihei. As soon as they met, Cecil began scolding him because he had promised to return last summer but had failed to do so. Moments later, Alan arrived, greeted him, and offered to carry his luggage. When Mihei learned that Alan was Cecil's new personal servant, he looked at him in surprise. He seemed far too young to him, and Mihei could not understand why a child of that age had been appointed to such a position. He added that anyone given such a job at this age must possess some exceptional ability or skill. Alan immediately realized that Mihei was intelligent and highly capable of understanding and analyzing others. After that, Mihei took out a gift he had brought from the royal capital for his sister. It was a beautiful butterfly-shaped ornament. Cecil was very happy with it. When Alan saw how much she loved her brother and cared about him, he remembered his own siblings and hoped they were doing well. Later, Alan was seen chasing a giant rooster before throwing a stone that struck it directly in the head and killed it. When he returned to the mansion, the chef was shocked after discovering that Alan had hunted the rooster he had been searching for a long time, and that he had also brought back a rare giant frog. The head butler told him to hurry and go watch the duel taking place between Mihei and the captain of the guards. The duel was meant to evaluate Mihei's level. After returning from the academy, Alan was impressed by the match, and the captain of the guards was also greatly impressed by Mihei's abilities, noticing how much he had developed compared to the previous year. CL saw Alan watching the fight and went over to greet him. When Mihei learned that Alan was the one who had hunted the rooster and the rare frog, he asked to face him in a friendly duel to measure his true level. Alan agreed and received the captain of the guard's sword. As soon as he held the weapon, he was amazed by its quality, especially since it was made of rare mithril metal. Then he checked his stats and noticed the major growth he had achieved recently thanks to his continuous monster hunting. He prepared for the duel while reminding himself that he had to be careful not to injure the mayor's son. The moment the fight began, he was surprised that Mihei blocked his first strike with complete ease. Then Mihei began launching a series of fast attacks that amazed Alan. Alan tried to catch him off guard with a sudden move, but Mihei stopped it easily using his hand. The duel continued at an increasingly intense and rapid pace. Mihei's mother watched the scene with concern, but the captain of the guards reassured her, confirming that Mihei had spent an entire year training at the academy and that there was no real chance of him losing to a beginner like Alan. In the end, Mihei succeeded in landing a powerful strike that knocked the sword out of Alan's hand, declaring his victory in the duel. After the fight ended, Mihei thanked Alan for the match and told him that his level was very good and that he had a strong foundation he could build on in the future. Here is the full English script. CL quickly praised her brother, then turned to Alan and told him that his level was good and that she would not call him weak this time. As for Thomas, he told them that during his training, he had entered one of the magic dungeons and defeated a large number of monsters. When Alan heard that, he wished he could get the chance to enter one of those dungeons as well. Mihei explained that his training at the academy had been extremely harsh and that was why his level had risen so much. At that moment, Alan wished he could become as strong as him one day. When he learned that Mihei would be leaving for a long time, Alan asked him to have another duel with him when he returned. Mihei agreed and asked him to continue taking care of his siblings. As for Alan, he wished he could go to the forest every day to raise his level, but he was bound by his duties towards CL. After that, they said goodbye to Mihei as he returned to the academy where Karina was studying as well. Alan hoped to see her soon and to one day be able to enter a magic dungeon. Sometime later, a noble named Carnell visited Mayor Granvelle. Carnell was a man of great influence and power, so the head butler advised Alan to be extremely careful with the food he served him, because he governed wide and important lands. Alan served the food, and when Carnell tasted the meat, he asked what kind it was. Granvelle answered that it was wild boar meat. Alan smiled faintly because he knew that the meat was actually from a wild rabbit he had hunted himself. Carnell began eating greedily, praising the flavor of the wild boar meat and confirming that the royal capital gathered massive amounts of it because of its high quality. At that moment, Alan realized that Carnell was one of the main reasons most of the wild boar meat was being sent to the capital. Later, the head butler provided additional information about the White Dragon Mountains. He explained that the White Dragon's nest was located there, and that the area also contained rare and precious mithril stones. However, the problem was that the mountains were surrounded by traps and dangers, making it impossible for the knights to invade and take control of them. For that reason, the city was suffering economically because of the shortage of mithril. But Carnell made it clear to Granvelle that he had not come to discuss that matter. Then he revealed that his daughter had recently undergone the talent appraisal test. When Alan heard that, he remembered the appraisal ceremony again and hoped that his brother Mash would possess a special talent. However, the surprise came when Carnell announced that his daughter had no talent at all. Then he admitted that he felt jealous of Granvelle because all three of his children possessed talents. Granvelle became displeased by his words and asked him to stop envying his children. As for Alan, he was stunned by the idea that even nobles envied one another, and he wondered inwardly what poor people were supposed to do if those with power felt that much jealousy. After that, Alan sat with the group of adventurers he had saved before and told them that he intended to go farther away from the city to hunt monsters, but they warned him not to underestimate the danger and confirmed that the monsters in distant areas were far more dangerous. Then one of them took him to buy some equipment, and there they found a robe with good stats. After that, Alan left for the forest, feeling happy about the growth his stats had recently achieved. Soon, his eagle returned to tell him that it had found a high-ranking giant boar and that it was sleeping. Alan summoned the tigers and ordered them to attack it. Despite the monster's resistance, the tigers managed to defeat it. Alan gained 1,500 experience points and also extracted a C-rank magic stone. He began to feel a little arrogant because of how easy the victory was, but he quickly remembered his previous losses and told himself that he still needed to work 100 times harder. After that, the eagle found another monster. It was a massive armored ant. Alan summoned the tigers again, but their claws left no mark on the ant's hard armor. After a short while, the ant managed to wipe out the tigers. At that point, Alan changed his strategy. He summoned a group of butterflies capable of releasing sleeping powder. Thanks to that, the ant fell asleep and rolled over onto its back. Alan tried to stab it while he had the chance, but even with an attack power of 438 points, he could not pierce its armor. The ant woke up after that and attacked him repeatedly, but in the end, he managed to defeat it and gained 3,000 more experience points. Through that battle, he realized that physical attacks would not be effective against every monster, so he decided to explore the possibility of using magic, especially since his intelligence stat was extremely high. He accompanied Ciel to a mage and asked him to find out whether he was capable of using magic. Ciel laughed and told him that using magic was limited to those who possessed the proper talent. The mage used a magic crystal to examine him, but the crystal showed no response when Alan touched it. The mage confirmed that Alan had no magical talent. Alan felt deeply frustrated and angry at the result, and began wondering what the point of having such a high intelligence growth rate was if he could not use magic. Elsewhere, the Baron was speaking with his military commander. He asked him about the results of the mountain explorations over the past 6 months. The commander answered that the situation had turned out exactly as they had expected. Because humans had been absent for a long time, monsters had taken over all the mines containing rare stones. He also explained that the number of monsters there was enormous and that they had become settled in the area. The Baron then asked how long it would take to retake control of the mines. Commander Zenov answered that it would take at least 3 years, but the Baron did not like that at all, and ordered him to finish the mission as quickly as possible. Zainov noticed how upset the Baron was, because he knew those mines were essential to improving the region's economy. After that, the Baron asked about Commander Carnell. Zainov answered that Carnell had previously tried to exploit those mines, but he provoked the white dragon living there. Because of that, the dragon attacked the workers, killed all of them, and burned them alive. Meanwhile, Alan received a new notification stating that he had gained 15,000 experience points thanks to the sharing skill. It turned out that the monsters he had sent into the forest had succeeded in killing a giant orc. Alan felt extremely happy and excited, and told himself that once he turned 12, he would leave his current job and become a true adventurer. He also decided that over the next 2 years, he would repay Baron Granville's kindness and try to help them eliminate the monsters threatening the region. After that, he headed toward one of the goblin hideouts. As soon as he arrived, groups of goblins began gathering in preparation to attack him. But thanks to the powerful monsters he had summoned, he managed to wipe out large numbers of them. He also used the sharing skill to pinpoint their locations accurately. His goal was clear: eliminate as many goblins as possible and destroy their colonies before they could become a serious threat to humans. He told himself that the time had come to erase them from the map completely. After that, he issued orders to the giant bears he had summoned, commanding them to attack the goblins and annihilate them. The goblins were terrified as soon as they saw those massive beasts. When they realized resistance was impossible, they tried to flee, but Alan had already surrounded them from every direction and began eliminating them one after another. At that moment, the goblin leader appeared, furious and burning with hatred. Alan sent one of the giant bears to face him. After a short battle, the bear managed to kill him and completely destroy the goblin hideout. Alan gained nearly 48,000 experience points, and despite the huge reward, he felt no real satisfaction. Instead, he continued searching for goblin and orc hideouts to destroy them and strengthen himself even further. After some time passed, Mihei returned after graduating from the academy. When the family went to welcome him, the first thing he did after seeing Alan was greet him, then demand a new duel. Mihei's siblings were surprised by his behavior because his personality seemed different from before. At the same time, Alan checked his stats and told himself that he had become able to summon large numbers of powerful monsters, and that his level had risen tremendously. He no longer saw any reason why he should lose to Mihei this time. It turned out that Mihei had asked for the duel without placing any restrictions on either side. Alan prepared to face him at full strength. The moment the duel began, he rushed toward his opponent at tremendous speed. He told told himself that his speed had multiplied greatly compared to the last time he fought Mihei. Mihei was surprised by that speed, but he still managed to block every attack with ease. Alan was shocked and told himself that he had not even managed to land a single hit. He continued attacking without stopping, but he began to feel exhausted. At that moment, it occurred to him that Mihei might be reading his movements and predicting his attacks in advance. Suddenly, Mihei launched a counterattack with astonishing speed. Alan barely managed to defend against it. He realized that his sword skill level was still far below his opponent's. After that, Mihei executed a powerful strike that knocked the sword out of Alan's hand, just as he had done in their previous matches. And so, the duel ended with Mihei's victory once again. Alan felt deeply frustrated and saddened because he had failed to defeat him for the third time in a row. He began wondering what he needed to do in order to finally overcome him. When he approached to congratulate him, he was surprised that Mihei completely ignored him and went straight to his father, Granvelle. There, Granvelle told him that he had put in tremendous effort during the 3 years he spent at the academy, and that he had now become a strong fighter they could rely on. As usual, Ciel went over to Alan and thanked him for fighting her brother, but she did not miss the chance to tease him, telling him that he would never be able to defeat Mihei. Then she suggested that Mihei train him himself. Alan liked the idea very much, while Thomas decided to join the training as well. After that, Mihei gathered his siblings and told them that he wanted to speak with them about something important. Then he announced that he would soon leave to fulfill his duty as a noble. Ciel and Thomas did not understand what he meant at first, so he explained to them that he would be traveling for a long time and that he did not know when he would return. They immediately became worried and asked him to stay. Ciel also noticed that their parents looked extremely sad and that they were deeply worried about Mihei. But Mihei reassured them all and told them not to worry about him. Then, with a calm smile, he said that it would only take 3 years, and after that, he would return to them again. Alan remembered Carnell's words when he told Baron Granvelle that he had remarkably talented children. At that time, the Baron had been upset because he knew that once his son graduated from the academy, he would be summoned to take part in the war against monsters. A short while later, Mihei was seen preparing his luggage and saying goodbye to his sister, his father, and his mother. When he climbed into the carriage, he embraced Alan and said to him, "I want you to take good care of my sister. No matter what happens, try to protect her and always keep her safe." After that, Alan continued destroying more goblin hideouts until he reached level 35. Then he used the sharing skill again and headed toward the orc territory. As soon as he arrived, he launched his attack on them. When the orcs tried to shoot arrows at him, he used the Golden Knight's ability to block them. After that, he summoned a group of spiders to bind the orcs guarding the gate. Once they were caught, he rushed straight into the hideout. Inside, the orcs quickly gathered and charged toward him. Alan summoned the giant bears again, and a fierce battle broke out between both sides. As he watched the fight, he noticed his experience points rising rapidly with every orc that fell. Suddenly, he was surprised by a magic spell flying toward him, but the Golden Knights intercepted it and stopped it. When he looked toward the source of the attack, he discovered a group of desert orc shamans responsible for those spells. 3 of them were preparing to cast even more magic. Alan felt extremely annoyed because he could not use magic like they could, but he told himself that he would not lose to them no matter what. He managed to block their attacks again using the Golden Knights, but their spells were extremely powerful and had begun affecting the monsters he had summoned. At that moment, he pulled out an iron ball and threw it directly at one of the shamans, crushing his head instantly. Alan felt a surge of satisfaction when his plan worked. Then he pulled 2 more iron balls from his magical storage box, preparing for the next attack. Suddenly, the 2 remaining shamans disappeared behind cover and tried to attack him from a hidden position, but Alan found another opportunity to throw the metal balls at them and attack them. At the same time, one of the orcs ran toward his leader, shouting for help and confirming that they were suffering a crushing defeat. When Alan saw a large number of orcs gathering against him, he felt no concern. Instead, he told himself that numbers alone meant nothing because he could summon as many magical beasts as he wanted. Immediately, he summoned a massive army, and a huge battle began between the summoned monsters and the orc forces. As he watched the battlefield, the great orc leader suddenly appeared. The giant bears rushed to attack him, but he wiped them out with a single strike. Alan was shocked by his terrifying strength. He continued summoning more giant bears, but the orc leader kept killing them easily every time. Suddenly, one of the shamans launched a new spell toward Alan. The Golden Knight managed to stop it, but this time the Golden Knight was completely shattered by the force of the magic. Then another shaman launched a new attack, and two of Alan's monsters tried to intercept it, but the resulting explosion sent Alan flying away. He used a healing skill to restore his health points, then desperately began searching for a way to defeat the orc leader. Suddenly, he heard a voice say to him, "Are you trying to defeat the orcs and their leader all by yourself?" Alan turned around in surprise and found Commander Xenov standing beside him. He could not understand how Xenov had appeared there so quickly. Xenov explained that he had seen the huge pillar of smoke from far away, so he came to investigate what was happening. Then he apologized, saying that he had wanted to eliminate the orcs himself. Alan immediately realized that Xenov had seen the summoned monsters he was using, so he quickly hid them. In return, Xenov decided to handle the Orc King himself and ordered his assistant to deal with the remaining enemies. Then he advanced confidently toward the orc leader. Alan felt happy because he knew he would gain experience as long as he had participated in the battle. The orc leader attacked Xenov at once, but Xenov stopped the attack easily and pushed him back. Alan was stunned by the power he displayed. Xenov's assistant then explained that Xenov was known as the Demon of War because of his overwhelming strength on the battlefield. The orc leader continued launching one attack after another, but Xenov blocked every strike with absolute ease. At the same time, Xenov's assistant noticed the shamans and charged toward them at incredible speed. A group of orcs tried to surround him, but he broke through their ranks with a single strike and killed them all. One of the shamans cast a spell at him, but the assistant split the spell in two and continued advancing without stopping until he had killed them all. Alan was completely shocked by the strength these two men possessed. Then, the focus returned to the orc leader. He launched another powerful attack against Xenov, but Xenov leaped into the air, then performed a single strike that split the orc leader in half. Alan could not believe what he had just seen. Xenov had defeated a B-rank monster with one blow without even using any special skill. That night, Xenov sat with Alan and spoke to him directly. Then he asked him, "You are the one who has been wiping out the goblins all this time, aren't you?" Alan could not deny it. Xenov explained that they had recently found large numbers of goblin corpses outside the city, but they had not known who was responsible for killing them. They had also noticed that all the magic stones from the goblins were missing from the bodies. Then he told him that he had seen all the monsters Alan had summoned during the battle. At that moment, Alan realized that his secret had been fully exposed, so he admitted the truth. Xenov explained that Baron Granville had known from the beginning that Alan possessed a special talent, which was why he had given him the title of Hunter and allowed him to leave the city to hunt. After that, he asked Alan not to hide anything from him again, and to at least inform him if he decided to go out hunting once more. During their conversation, Alan noticed that Xenov's back was covered in scars left behind by the many battles he had fought throughout his life. The next day, Alan was surprised by the enormous amount of experience points he had gained after the orc leader's death. It was equal to 7 times what he had gained from the goblins he had killed before. A short while later, messengers from the kingdom arrived at the Baron's mansion. They handed over documents concerning Mihei. Then they told the family that their son Mihei had fulfilled his national duty. But after that, they added that he had died during the mission and had already been buried. Silence filled the room. Everyone was struck by shock. The Baron shouted in intense anger, asking how they had allowed that to happen when they knew his son had only graduated from the academy 6 months earlier. As for Mihei's mother, she collapsed to the floor from the shock, crying bitterly. Alan could not believe the news either. He immediately remembered Mihei's final request when he had asked him to take care of Ciel before leaving. The entire castle was drowned in grief. Granville tried to comfort his daughter, telling her that this was a national duty any noble might have to face. But Ciel burst into tears and screamed, "What is the point of national duty if it only ends in death?" Then she ran away crying. After that, Alan sat with the head butler and learned from him that this was not the first tragedy the Granville family had suffered. The Baron's father and elder brother had also died at a young age. Suddenly, everyone heard panicked screams. Soon they discovered that Ciel had disappeared and no one knew where she had gone. Then it became clear that she had escaped through her bedroom window. Alan immediately rushed toward the forest to search for her, hoping she had not come to any harm. At the same time, Ciel was wandering through the dark alleys. She was exhausted from walking, so she sat down in a corner, staring at the gift Mihei had brought her. As she did, she remembered the letter he had written to her before leaving, a letter that carried his doubts and fear about what might happen to him. Mihei had most likely known what was waiting for him, but he had pretended otherwise so his family would not worry. When Ciel realized that, she burst into tears once again. At that moment, Alan arrived. When she saw him, she asked if he had come to take her back home, but he denied it and told her that he had come to accompany her as her personal servant. Then he sat down right beside her. Ciel became flustered by how close he was and asked him to move away a little, but he paid no attention to her request. Alan took some food out of his magic book, the grimoire. Ciel began eating while crying. Then she asked him if her sister was truly strong. He answered that he had never once been able to defeat her. At that, she started crying again, remembering the letters in which Mihei had written about her fear, her unwillingness to die, and her wish to return to her family. Then she said in a trembling voice that she might also die one day. Alan surprised her with a strange suggestion. He said that the two of them could run away together and travel around the world. Ciel immediately shouted and told him that was impossible, but Alan insisted, saying they could do it next year when they became old enough to register as adventurers. Ciel remembered that she would turn 12 and that she was supposed to enter the academy, but Alan told her not to enter it if she did not want to. He explained that it was only a school in the end, and that her life belonged to her alone. She was the only one who had the right to choose how she wanted to live. Then he asked her what she truly wanted. Ciel thought about Mihei's words, when he had once told her that she had chosen her own path. After thinking for a long time, she finally made her decision. Then she asked Alan to take her back home. Alan agreed immediately, but she ordered him to carry her on his back. As her servant, he had no choice but to obey. On the way home, Ciel spoke with unusual honesty and thanked him for everything he had done for her. When they arrived, her family welcomed her with open arms, their faces filled with worry. After things calmed down a little, her father announced new news. They had finally managed to resume work in the mithril mines. That meant there was now a real chance to obtain exemption from noble duties if the mining rights were handed over to another family. When Ciel heard that, she took a step back, put on the supporter her late sister had given her, and declared that, as a member of the Granville family, she would fulfill her duty as a noble and walk the same path as Mihei. Silence followed her words, but everyone accepted her decision. Several months later, Alan continued hunting monsters with his Teddy team. He explained that life in the Granville family had returned to normal. At the mansion, the Baron and Xenoph were discussing how smoothly the mithril mining operations were progressing. Still, the Baron expressed concern about Viscount Carnal because he did not know what the man might do after losing his mines. After that, Alan appeared climbing a mountain for a reason that was not clear at first. He said Ciel had been unable to accompany him, even though she had wanted to, because her father had stopped her before he left. At the summit, Alan found a nest of armored ants. Since he knew that this nest could cause serious problems for the mine workers, he decided to eliminate it himself. He reviewed what he knew about these creatures, and he knew that the colony contained more than 1,000 soldiers, along with a B-rank queen. He carefully inspected the area, found a small entrance, and began the challenge with a team of 6 members. The problem was that the armored ants emerged in huge numbers and attacked his team ferociously. Even after an entire month, Alan still had not finished off the colony. In fact, the ants continued to overwhelm him. From exhaustion, he began thinking of a way to solve the problem, especially since he was killing around 2,000 ants every week. He wondered whether the queen was eating those corpses and then laying more eggs, which would explain why they kept appearing and why he could not obtain their magic stones. Even so, he was excited by the experience and training he was gaining, so he decided to change his strategy and stay there every day. Suddenly, the ants stopped coming out. Alan shouted in joy, because his patience had finally paid off. He approached the nest to eliminate the queen, summoned his allies including Hula, who shared his vision. While flying inside the nest, they encountered more ants, so Alan summoned other creatures. When he saw the egg chamber, he withdrew and tried sending his allies through different paths, but he struggled to control all of them at the same time. The colony was like a massive maze. Alan felt exhausted and wanted to return home, but he did not want to waste this opportunity. After a while, Hula found the armored ant queen. After 2 full months of hunting and effort, Alan entered the depths with the Teddy Team army, like a true player entering a decisive battle. The queen was 3 times larger than the normal ants. Alan decided to attack the ordinary ants first in order to isolate the queen, but she wiped out the bear army quickly. So Alan summoned his allies again and ordered them to attack the queen's abdomen. With powerful, focused bites, they finally managed to kill her and achieve victory. Alan thought that the queen might have been weakened after giving birth to such a massive number of soldiers. He decided to spend the night there because he was late returning home, then searched for proof that he had destroyed the colony and found crystals. The next day, Alan returned home proudly and displayed the skeleton of the ant queen he had hunted from the White Dragon Mountain. Everyone was stunned by what they saw, and CL could not believe her eyes. As for Zenith, he said he had never seen an ant queen before, and that even knights themselves did not have the strength needed to conquer an entire colony because of how complicated it was. Alan admitted how difficult it had been, and said he had succeeded thanks to his summons. After that, he took a mithril medal from his bag, which he had found in the queen's chamber. The adults immediately realized its importance, and asked him to explain the details. The 3 of them went to the office, while CL remained in the mansion. Alan showed them the maps of the place and the route to the mine, and the Baron confirmed that he had discovered the 5th mithril vein. Because of that, he forgave Alan for leaving illegally, and promised him 30% of the mining rights. Alan did not fully understand the matter, but he felt that what he had received was something extremely significant. As the days passed, Alan reached a certain age. While doing his work, he thought about how the mithril veins would begin operating the following year. He wondered how different his life had become from what he had expected. Instead of becoming an adventurer, he had become a servant to a noble family. While he was lost in thought, Rachel told him that a royal messenger had arrived. Alan wondered about the reason for the visit, and the scene then moved to the dining room, where the messenger was present together with Viscount Carnal. Alan immediately suspected that there was trouble. The Baron asked about the reason for the visit, and the messenger explained that they had learned about the state of the mines and had come to propose an agreement to merge the management of White Dragon Mountain between the Baron and Viscount Carnal, with the profits divided equally. He added that he had contacted the Ministry of Justice to draft the contract. Everyone realized that this had been the Viscount's idea. The Baron rejected the offer and said that he would first go to the royal capital to verify the situation himself. The messenger became angry, called him ignorant, then left while threatening him that his greed would destroy him. The Baron struck the table in rage at this injustice after his family had waited an entire century. Then he asked about Zenith, and Sebas told him that he was on the mountain and would return in 2 days. At that point, the Baron decided to go to the capital as soon as Zenith returned. In the kitchen, the head chef asked about the contract, and Rachel confirmed that it might benefit both sides. But Alan remained suspicious, knowing how angry the Viscount was. His doubts were soon confirmed when he heard a woman scream. He ran to help and found Seal being kidnapped. Alan attacked Seal's kidnappers, but one of them blocked his strike easily. Alan changed his stats and managed to keep up with them. At that time, Sebas informed the Baron of the kidnapping, but one of the kidnappers noticed they were being watched and used smoke that caused Alan to lose consciousness. Alan woke up to find CL tied up, but he managed to summon Chappie and share his vision. Through him, he saw that they were inside a storage room on a ship. A man named Draga entered and asked why the kidnapping had happened. Marcus answered that the boy was skilled with the sword. Draga threatened him and ordered him to solve the problem immediately. Alan understood that the situation was dangerous and that waiting for help would not work. So he decided to act on his own, though he was worried about losing his sword. He took advantage of one of the kidnappers leaving and inspected the escape route through Chappie. Learning that they were aboard a magic ship, he remained calm and focused on seizing the opportunity once the ship landed. Chappie overheard 2 men talking about the mining rights, and Alan understood the reason CL had been kidnapped. When CL woke up frightened, one of the kidnappers said they were close to carnal territory. Alan decided to move immediately, summoning Babalunt, the butterfly capable of putting the guards to sleep. Then he untied CL and told her that it was time to move. And here, dear viewers, our story comes to an end. We hope you enjoyed it and that it captured your interest. If you want a second season, let me know in the comments. And before you close the video, do not forget to press the like button to support us, subscribe for more episodes, and activate the notification bell so you can watch every new anime on the channel. Share your thoughts with us in the comments, and we will meet again in new episodes. Goodbye.